hunter, shape-shifting face. Target victim, what can I do? I'm the hunter, transformed to prey. Hunted victim, come loot the room.
Dresden retrieves his potions and blasting rod. He changes clothes to impersonate a janitor and infiltrates the police station with the help of his stealth potion. It's an interesting scene with evocative visuals that really work well in graphic novel form. It's too late, and the Loup-Garou breaks free of its cell. A really epic action scene follows, with Dresden fighting the Loup-Garou and trying to save the cops. I can only compare it to the scene in Terminator where he drives the car into the station. It's that wild.
I'll be back.
One of Dresden's spells rebounds on him. Fortunately, Murphy is there to come in and save him. Murphy read Dresden's report, so she made bullets from inherited silver. But she doesn't hit the Loup-Garou in any critical area. She at least wounds it a bit, and it decides to make a quick exit into another part of the station. Yay! Murphy's effective against a monster this time! Take that, Scorpion Talisman! Murphy's still angry and tries to have Dresden locked up, but he persuades the cop assigned to guard him to let him collect magic supplies for round 2 versus the Loup-Garou. It's a tad silly with a Snoopy doll, but the scene is still badass. The Loup-Garou turns tail and runs, through a set of walls and into the city. In the book, there's a bit about a guy in a cell that the Loup-Garou ran through on the way out. He sticks his head out and swears. It's a cute moment, but again racially awkward, because this random criminal is a black guy. His race acts as an accent to make the scene more interesting, particularly in a way that fulfills a racial stereotype. The graphic novel doesn't feature this guy at all, instead cutting directly to Dresden using the Snoopy doll as a puppet to immobilize the Loup-Garou, hopefully until morning. At least there's, again, no reference to voodoo dolls.
Hello, Poppy.
In the confusion, Susan and Tara help Dresden evade custody. On the drive to find the Loup-Garou, the street wolves show up in pursuit. Dresden is dead tired with most of his magic gone, so he tells them to call the cops, jumps out of the car, and faces the street wolves himself, drinking the potion for energy. It works great. He's feeling good.
I feel fantastic, and I never felt as good as how I do right now. Except for maybe when I think of how I felt that day, when I felt the way that I do right now, right now, right now.
So good that he uses up a lot of magic, and then he uses it up. They subdue him. He passes out and awakens tied up in the full moon garage. He gets out of his bonds, but pretends he's asleep so he can overhear them talking about working for Marcone. The boss, Parker, wants to continue working for Marcone, but there's dissent in the ranks. Parker's right-hand man doesn't like it. He wants to break free of Marcone's reign. Dresden takes advantage of this conflict to make Parker angry at him, assuming he'll get clumsy, but Parker doesn't act predictably and tries to kill him. Marcone then shows up and saves him. He again makes Dresden the offer to work for him. Dresden tries to use magic, but is totally out of juice. He pretends to agree to the offer to make Parker angry and attack Marcone. Dresden runs away while they fight, right into the feds, who aren't happy that Dresden knows they're here. Denton gives the order to kill him, so his people put on their wolf pelts and transform into Hexen Wolfen. Fortunately, Marcone and the street wolves show up, and it becomes such a huge three-way fight that Dresden is able to hide long enough to be rescued by Tara and the Alphas. It's a veritable Werepalooza! Dresden and the Alphas manage to subdue Harris and remove his pelt, and they interrogate him. Harris explains that Denton was given the pelts from an unknown enchanter so that Denton and his people could go outside the law to exact vigilante justice on bad guys. They put a plan in motion to kill Marcone and his people. They assumed that the police would accept the idea that the werewolf-themed street gang would be behind the werewolf-themed killings. When the enchanter explained that the paranormal world is governed by the White Council, they came up with a plan to blame McFinn. The White Council would assume that the killer was a Loup-Garou. But the Hexen Wolfen slipped and started killing innocents too. The Hexen Wolf power was so addictive that they became monsters on the inside too, becoming obsessed with killing for the thrill of it. Finn is the worst case of this. She's just pure monster, obsessed with bloodlust and lust.
It feels so good.
She is demonized as a woman really into sex. Her sex appeal is both fan service and a coding of her evil nature. One scene emphasizes the Hexen freaky sexuality by having Ben put her fingers in Denton's mouth, which might be homophobic if we're to interpret the phallic fingers as part of the freakiness, and it's just generally sexist for saying that a woman's sexuality is abhorrent when she's into it, as opposed to nude werewolf Tara just being too inhuman to appreciate it, and the other sexy women just wearing their sex appeal. It fits into this pattern of male fetishization of female sexual innocence and passivity. The Lost Girl car wash scene works because they're all consenting adults having a good time.
My God, you're beautiful.
Bo is a supernatural creature embodying female sexuality, and she acts sexy as part of her basic nature. So she washes the car without intending to turn anyone on, but isn't ignorant of her sexuality, because she is an active sexual being who owns her sexuality. Lost Girl makes active, experienced, and conscious sexuality wholesome, while Full Moon and Stormfront have this regressive view of female sexuality that demonizes it, while demanding that women still be sexually appealing to men. I really hope this isn't in the other books. The idea of Hexen being abhorrently sexual is technically true to the Navajo skinwalker legend, but that's more about them digging up corpses to have sex with, or raping women in their homes. Skinwalkers aren't sexy like the European werewolf. The way Ben is depicted is pure Jim Butcher sex appeal. Even if he was drawing on actual legend, he would still have a responsibility to adjust the depiction as fits current acceptable mores, as Lost Girl does with the succubus figure. The rejection of the legendary skinwalkers to assert the original creation Hexen further puts the onus on Jim Butcher to construct a healthy depiction. Dresden lets Harris go to send a message to Denton. Dresden will confront him at Marcone's estate, around the time the Lugaroo should get there. With Susan's help for transportation, Dresden and Tara gather the Alphas in preparation for an attack. The adventure brought him and Susan close together, and they have a romantic scene far better than her usage as the Pepe Le Pew knockoff in Stormfront. Dresden questions one of the Alphas, who explains that he became aware of the supernatural because of the recent vampire craze. Because this is before Twilight, this probably refers to things like Interview with a Vampire and Buffy. He figured out that there were actually vampires and other things causing a huge spike in the murder rate, and he decided to engage the supernatural as a warrior for the side of good. The Earth sits on the edge of a revolution, just before the supernatural makes itself known to the public. A lot of people are already aware, and Murphy and Dresden have been dealing with the fallout of this. And it seems like the dam might break in future books. Assuming this is accurate, I'm looking forward to it. Throughout the book, Dresden has been troubled by the idea of killing people. His backstory involves killing his old teacher and his ex-girlfriend after she became corrupt. He doesn't want to be that kind of person anymore. Tara has wanted to kill cops in self-defense, and he always made her agree not to. He condemns the Hexen as animals for giving into bloodlust, but Tara says that animals don't kill for the pleasure of killing, that this is a human evil. Now Dresden takes the role of teacher for the young Alphas, and he wants to tell them not to kill, but he knows that the Hexen are just too dangerous to face with phasers on stun, and tells them to try not to kill, but to do so if they must. Tara and the Alphas shift into wolf form and approach the estate. Dresden has just enough magic left to zap the security cameras out of commission. Unfortunately, Marcone is genre-savvy enough to recognize that as Dresden's presence, so he's aware of an incursion. He shows up with the Hexen not knowing they're his enemies, and they stun the Alphas. Dresden manages to put a gun to Denton's head and take his pelt, but Denton reveals his leverage. Murphy is a hostage. I'm not exactly thrilled about her usage here, but it would have been very easy to write the scene without her, and she's at least included. Ben rips off her shirt because, of course, she does.
So you managed to get your shirt off?
She's a beastly sexual monster. Yeah. Denton tries to kill Dresden, but Marcone intervenes. He still wants Dresden as a pawn. Dresden warns him that Denton's out to kill him, but Marcone doesn't believe him until the Hexen attack his bodyguard, but by then they have control. They put Dresden and company at the bottom of a pit that Marcone dug to trap the Lugaroo, and they tie Marcone to the top for bait. Sure enough, the Lugaroo comes for them. Dresden and Marcone work together to get everyone free, and Tara attacks the Lugaroo, while the others fight the Hexen. Without his magic, Dresden can only fight by using Harris's pelt to become a Hexen himself. He becomes the kind of monster he fought against, complete with a passion for killing. I guess there's kind of a theme about drugs. Him taking the energy potion is described like he got high, and now him becoming a Hexen wolf is described as like being on cocaine, but several times more intense. He gets Denton in a state where Dresden could very easily kill him, but Susan shows up and reminds Dresden of the good side of humanity, and he shows mercy. He removes the pelt and commits to his humanity.
Drugs are bad.
Murphy and Tara show up, running away from the Lugaroo. Dresden touches his mother's silver amulet and realizes, inherited silver. It's a great setup, especially because the amulet was introduced in Stormfront and served a particular function there. You don't think about it as potential fodder for silver bullets. Not having time to melt it down, he summons the last of his magical powers through thinking about spiritual satisfaction, as powers good magic, and he winds up the amulet to throw. Murphy seems to take it aggressively and raises her gun, telling him to get down.
Get down, and move it all around.
But he has only one shot and stays put to throw it, just as Murphy fires. His magic buries the amulet in the Lugaroo's chest, and it transforms back into McFinn to die in peace.
Now you will find peace for eternity.
Jim Butcher pulls a Joss Whedon and makes us think that Murphy kills Dresden, until it's revealed that she killed Denton as he came up behind him.
The man's psychotic.
She gets angry that Dresden thought that he was dying a tragic hero's death, which strikes me as narratively unfair, because the framing legitimizes Dresden's perspective. Dresden smiles at her ranting because it means they're on good terms again, but I don't like the cliched tsundere standoffishness. Tsundere, an anime love interest, hostile and standoffish by default, but secretly warm and affectionate, if only the protagonist can unlock it. It doesn't make me like Murphy as a friend or potential love interest for Dresden. The wrap-up sees Murphy respected again as a cop. Susan gets respect for her story on Dresden saving Murphy from a large animal of some kind, until some higher-ups decide that they don't want the supernatural receiving such attention and make the story go away. Tara transforms into her wolf form and goes away into the woods. And Dresden realizes that she's a classic werewolf the other way around, where a wolf decides that it's safer to transform into a human. Wait, wolves are intelligent and can learn magic? Are there any other animals like that? Do they have whole societies that humans are unaware of? Are the chickens going to lead a revolt in revenge for factory farming? These are important questions that Dresden should be asking, but he ignores them to go home and pet his cat. Wait, can his cat learn magic? Is some future storyline going to involve Dresden going out with a girl? Turns out to be his cat, pulling a big prank on him? No? Well, give me some world building that establishes that's not going to happen. You can't just have a one-sentence wrap-up line that challenges the fabric of reality. The book ends with Dresden musing about the unknown supplier of Hexen wolf pelts, who seems like an enemy. We're left with a few other dangling storylines, like what exactly happened in Dresden's backstory. I hope the next book clears that up. It's been a long time with Dresden's acts of killing as a mystery with only hints, and it annoys me when the book doesn't elaborate. Otherwise, I'm fine to wait and see who the unknown enemy is, and if the dam breaks and releases supernatural activity on the world. From a feminist perspective, it's better than Stormfront, but still has room for improvement. Dresden's chauvinism is more fully presented as a character flaw, and not just a fun trait, but not much is done with it besides moderately inconveniencing him a few times. The female characters have more to do, and Tara is interesting as an inhuman ally, but they're still pretty cliché and there for sex appeal. The sex appeal itself is used in an icky way to shame women for sexual desires. The sexism problems are compounded with racism problems in the original book that were cleaned up for the graphic novel, but still find some form in Tara's relatively dark skin, while she's the beastly naked femme fatale. I'm hoping this is not indicative of what I can expect in the rest of the series. Until Grave Peril next year, folks.
I'm the hunter that didn't
Hi everyone, I've graduated. Yay! So, I'm sure some of you are wondering why you haven't seen more videos from me, if I'm free from the yoke of academia. Well, late last year, I accepted a commission to review the first season of Scream Queens. This project has since grown into the most massive thing I have ever tackled, as I realized just how complex this series is. I'm hoping to be able to complete it at some point in August, and you're all basically going to get a feature-length documentary on the first season of a 2-season Nerdfest. I call it my magnum opus. Once that's completed, I hope to be able to start a more regular schedule of 10 to 20 minute videos. Buffy videos will be unaffected, don't worry. That brings me to my next announcement. A year ago, when I reviewed Stormfront, I asked if anyone was interested in supporting me on Patreon. At the time, I decided it wasn't really practical based on the amount of interest that was shown. Well, I've decided that with the growth in my channel in the past year, I want to give it a shot. However, I don't feel right officially launching my Patreon until I complete Scream Queens, and can reasonably attempt a standard monthly schedule. But I figured I'd give you all the heads up that it's coming. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter.